think humans can domesticate any animal? The truth is, most animals on this planet never gave us the chance. Let me ask you something. There are millions of animal species on Earth, yet fewer than 20 have ever been successfully domesticated. Cows, sheep, pigs, chickens, dogs, horses. The same handful of faces, over and over again. So here's the question. Why not zebras? Why not deer? Why not lions, bears, or even gorillas? Was it because humans didn't try hard enough? No. The truth is the exact opposite. It wasn't humans who chose animals. It was animals who filtered out humans. Before we get to the failures, let's clear up something most people never think about. Domestication and training are not the same thing. Have you ever seen a circus lion jump through a flaming hoop? A bear riding a bicycle? An elephant painting a picture? You might think, isn't that domestication? Wrong. That's training. Training is getting one animal to learn a behavior. Domestication is changing an entire species at the genetic level. A circus lion can be trained for its entire life, but its cubs will still be born as wild animals. It doesn't pass down tameness. Think about it practically. You can't have every household keep a lion, but you can have every household keep a dog. That's the difference. In other words, training makes this animal obedient. Domestication makes its descendants born obedient. Now let's look at some of the most spectacular failures in history. Zebras. The most handsome failure. Zebras look like horses, arguably better looking than horses. Fast, tough, and native to Africa, the very continent where humans and animals first made contact. By all logic, zebras should have been the first riding animals. People tried. In the 19th century, a British gentleman attempted to drive a zebra-drawn carriage through the streets of London. The result? The zebra went berserk, biting, kicking, flipping the carriage. No civilization in history has ever successfully domesticated a zebra. The problem wasn't size. It wasn't speed. It was temperament. A zebra's nervous system is wired like a high-explosive detonator. The slightest disturbance, and it goes off. You can train one zebra, but you can never domesticate a population of them because that explosive temperament can't be bred out. On the African savanna, that hair trigger reaction kept zebras alive. In human society, it got them eliminated from the competition entirely. Gorillas share 98% of their DNA with humans. They can learn sign language. They have complex social structures. Sounds like the perfect candidate. And yet, complete failure. The reason is almost counterintuitive. They're too smart. Domestication requires an animal to accept authority. Dogs accept it. Cattle accept it. Horses accept it. Because they're hardwired with a submit to the leader instinct. Gorillas? They are the leader. They don't recognize you as superior. And frankly, they have the physical ability to make that point very clearly. The gorilla's problem isn't a lack of intelligence. It's that it's so intelligent, it simply doesn't need you. This one surprises most people. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs kept cheetahs. So did Indian royalty. So did medieval European nobles. They hunted alongside them, walked with them on golden leashes. And yet cheetahs were never domesticated. There was one single fatal problem. Cheetahs almost never breed in captivity. If you can't control their reproduction, you can't shape their genetics. And if you can't shape their genetics, you can't domesticate them. Every cheetah ever kept by a human had to be caught from the wild. That was true 5,000 years ago. It was still true last century. The cheetah's problem wasn't temperament. It simply refused to hand its future over to you. Deer seem like ideal candidates. Graceful, calm, seemingly harmless. Yet almost no civilization has ever successfully domesticated deer. Because deer are prone to collective panic. One deer spooks, and the entire herd explodes in every direction simultaneously, like someone pressed a self-destruct button. You can't manage that. You can't build a stable breeding system around it. Domestication isn't about controlling one individual. It's about controlling an entire population over generations. Deer just don't qualify. Hippos kill more people in Africa every year than lions do. Over 500 deaths annually. No civilization ever made a serious attempt to domesticate them. Some animals never even made it to the audition. So what does an animal actually need to be domesticated? It has to pass through 5 gates. Gate 1. Social structure with a clear hierarchy. Sheep, cattle, horses, dogs all have leaders and followers. Their brains are already wired to defer to a higher authority. When humans arrived, we simply took the leader's position. Without that hierarchy, there's no way for humans to insert themselves into the system. Cats are an interesting exception here. Cats are solitary. They have no submission instinct, which is why many people say cats were never truly domesticated. Cats decided to move in with us. There's real truth to that. Gate 2. Stable temperament, low aggression. Not zero aggression. Bulls still charge, but the emotional responses have to be predictable. Cattle don't randomly snap. Sheep don't attack without warning. They can be trusted over the long term. Zebras, with their today calm, tomorrow explosive personalities, are eliminated immediately. Gate 3. Low feeding cost. Almost every domesticated large animal is an herbivore. That's not a coincidence. You can't compete with your livestock for food. A cow eats grass, plows your fields, gives you milk, and eventually gives you meat. That math works. A lion? Just the meat bill alone would bankrupt you. And that's before it eats you. Gate 4. Must breed in captivity. The cheetah story says it all. Some animals breed fine in the wild, but shut down entirely when confined. If you can't control reproduction, you can't control genetics. No genetics, no domestication. Out. Gate 5. No collective panic response. Deer and antelope one fright, and the whole group self-destructs. Sheep, cattle, and horses can be spooked, but they can be calmed back down. You can bring them back from the edge. That's the critical difference. Put all 5 together, and you realize something striking. Out of millions of species on this planet, the number that genuinely satisfy every single condition is tiny. A few dozen at most. Truly domesticable. Fewer than 20. The greatest domestication success in history is the dog. Dogs descended from wolves. And wolves happen to tick every box. Social hierarchy, selectable temperament, able to survive and reproduce near human camps. About 15,000 years ago, some wolves, the ones slightly less afraid of people, began creeping toward human campsites, eating scraps, gnawing bones, picking through the refuse. Humans probably chased them off at first, but gradually, people realized these wolves were useful. They barked at approaching threats. They scared off other predators. So humans started tolerating them, then feeding them deliberately. This wasn't humans taming wolves. This was a mutual attraction. The calmer wolves survived. The aggressive ones were driven away or killed. Generation after generation, they grew more dependent on humans, more docile, more readable, more like what we'd recognize today. Eventually, they became dogs. But there's an experiment that makes this even clearer, and the results stunned everyone who heard about them. In 1959, Soviet geneticist Dmitry Belyaev began a radical experiment. His goal? Artificially rerun the domestication process using silver foxes. From a population of farm foxes, he selected only the calmest, least fearful individuals for breeding. Every single generation, the same filter. Aggressive ones out, calm ones in. Then he waited. Within just a few dozen generations, not thousands of years, just decades, something extraordinary happened. Changes began appearing that nobody had asked for. Ears went soft and floppy. Tails began to wag. White patches appeared in the fur. Faces became rounder, more juvenile looking. The foxes began actively seeking out human contact. No one selected for any of these traits. The only thing humans selected for was tameness. But tameness is connected to an entire cascade of hormonal and neurological changes. And those changes rippled outward into appearance and behavior in ways nobody predicted. That is domestication. And the experiment told us something else. The time it takes to go from wild animal to domestic animal may be far shorter than anyone imagined. Now we know that domesticable animals are rare, vanishingly rare. But this has implications that reach far beyond zoology. Have you ever wondered why some civilizations developed so much faster than others? Why did Eurasian civilizations advance so rapidly? Why were indigenous civilizations in Africa and the Americas at such a profound disadvantage when European contact began? The traditional answer always pointed to the people. Some groups were smarter, more industrious, culturally superior. That answer is wrong. Historian Jared Diamond, in Guns, Germs, and Steel, made an argument that reframes all of this. The key wasn't the people, it was the animals. Eurasia happened to be home to the largest concentration of domesticable species on Earth. Horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, goats. Almost all of them originated in Eurasia. Horses let you move armies quickly. Cattle let you farm vastly more land and feed vastly more people. Those animals created food surpluses. Food surpluses created specialization. Specialization created cities. Cities created civilization as we know it. What happened in Africa? Africa has more large animal species than Eurasia. Zebras, hippos, rhinos, elephants, giraffes. But almost none of them can be domesticated. It wasn't that African civilizations lacked intelligence or ambition. It was that zebras wouldn't cooperate. It was that hippos were too dangerous to approach. The trajectory of human history was shaped, in no small part, by the temperament of animals. That conclusion should feel strange when you sit with it. The arc of civilizations decided, in part, by a zebra's stress response. Closing. So here's the real conclusion. Humans did not conquer nature. We simply encountered, among millions of species, a tiny handful that happened to be compatible with cooperation. Their temperaments, their social structures, their ecological niches, all of it happened to allow this relationship to exist. Everything else was never really an option. Here's something I find genuinely funny to think about. If you apply the 5 criteria to humans ourselves, social animals with clear hierarchies? Yes. Stable, predictable temperament? Mostly. Low feeding cost relative to output? More or less. Reproduce in captivity? Obviously. No collective panic response? Generally, yes. Humans pass every single gate. In a very real sense, humans may be the most successfully domesticated animals on Earth. We have hierarchy, submission, social grouping, predictable emotional responses. We just reserved the role of domesticator for ourselves. Or maybe, are we the ones doing the domesticating?